Scott Ritter, welcome here, my dear friend. As always, thank you for accommodating my schedule. Before we get to the military issues involved in attempting to control Hormuz, this weekend we witnessed again the continued humiliation of Vice President Vance, 21 straight hours of negotiating, punctuated by 11 phone calls from the president and at least one from a foreign head of state, Benjamin Netanyahu, all monitored by the president's Zionist monitors, Steve Witkoff and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. What did this accomplish?
Well, first of all, we have to understand that Donald Trump's in a world of trouble right now. I mean, he's doing a lot of aggressive posting, insane posting, to be honest. But this is a man who promised his political base that he would not get involved in another, war of aggression in the Middle East. He, had openly condemned past presidents for doing exactly what he has done now. This is one of the dumbest wars ever fought by America, and there are a number of dumb ones we've been involved in. But this one has no basis in legitimacy whatsoever. This is 100% not only a war of choice, but a war in which the United States has been directed into combat by a foreign power. This isn't a war on behalf of the American people or American national security interests. This is a war on behalf of Israel, 100% pure. That's all it's about. And now the president, I think he thought that he could, get away with a quick victory, Venezuela style, because he bought Benjamin Netanyahu's nonsense about the fragility of the regime, that if they kill Ali Khamenei, that the regime will collapse, and then everything solves itself. They install a puppet government, and everybody lives happily ever after. But that, of course, is not what happened. Iran showed extreme resilience, and not only in terms of their ability to absorb punishment, but to deliver punishment. And in the end, the United States was compelled to seek a ceasefire. This was a ceasefire that was done at the behest of the United States, to a lesser extent at the behest of Israel. But Donald Trump, and this is something I ask people to do, we need to stop evaluating the current situation in terms of national security defense questions are meaningless in this environment. Meaningless because this has nothing to do with the national defense of the United States. It has nothing to do with the foreign policy of the United States. This is about Donald Trump's narcissism. This is about sustaining the cult of personality. This is about the Trump brand. That's all this is about. And because the Trump brand right now needs some burnishing, he can't take blame for what has happened. He needs a fall guy. Enter J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance was set up. He was sent to Pakistan to fail. He was set up to ensure, the Iranians were ready to make a deal. There's the deal right there to be made. If you want something good for all parties involved, despite the tragedies taking place, it's there. The Iranians were well prepared. They came in with their teams. They had the notebooks. They had all the arguments laid out, all the facts. J.D. Vance had nothing except Witkoff and Kushner, who aren't there to do anything other than babysit, to ensure that he, sustains the narrative he's supposed to sustain, which is we're here, but we're in charge. We have the demands. You get nothing. You don't get to dictate. America is the victorious party. Oh, you don't want to play our game? I'm going home. That was his job. Why? Because now Donald Trump is in a position to ride in and save the day. You see, Trump couldn't come in and do a deal with the Iranians because he'd have to admit that he made a mistake, that we lost, that he was yielding. But now J.D. Vance has fumbled. J.D. Vance couldn't close the deal. Donald Trump, the great deal maker, will. This is his plan. The problem for Trump is the Iranians aren't playing that game. They're not going to yield. They're not going to do anything. There's a deal to be made there, but it's going to require the United States to eat some humble pie. And when we're dealing with the ultimate egomaniac, this malignant narcissist who occupies the White House today, there's no such thing as eating humble pie.
So what's Trump, before we get to Hormuz, what is Trump's next move? To resume the war in another week?
I don't think first of all, we're in a very dangerous situation because war is always on the horizon. Right. But there will, It's alleged that Albert Einstein once said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over again, expecting a different outcome. If we resume the war, we're going to lose. There's nothing that's happened militarily that changes the dynamic that already delivered an American defeat. We don't control the Strait of Hormuz, and we never will control the Strait of Hormuz. We cannot collapse the regime. The more we bomb, the stronger the regime gets. And I know there's been a lot of C-17 flights moving around, replenishing the missiles on board the ships, getting more defense. But we will. And the Iranians said, "Do whatever you need to do. You'll burn through all your stuff within 2 days, and we'll be right back where we started." The same dynamics in play. Iran controls every aspect of this conflict. We can blow up buildings on the ground. That's all we can do. We don't even know if you think there's anything of value in any building in Iran today, I've got a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn. We're going to go back in there. Donald Trump says he's going to blow things up. Well, you touch a power plant, Donald Trump, and the lights go out throughout the Middle East. Every single major energy production field in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait and the United Arab Emirates disappears, gone. And if you want to play even more stupid games, they'll start taking out desalination plants, and they'll do that in Israel as well. And that's life terminating. That's the end of modern civilization in this region. And this is where the Iranians are ready to go if that's the game the United States wants to play. This is why we stopped the war, because we had reached the cap of our escalation capabilities. Had we continued with his civilization erasing threats, there would be no energy coming out of the Middle East for a century. Trump stopped because he understood this, that we had gone. So what's he going to do? Start all over again? So this is why he's taken a new tack, the blockade, but this isn't going to work. A blockade is by definition an act of war. So he's in effect declaring war on Iran. And I anticipate that the Iranians will treat it as a warlike gesture, but I also anticipate that the allies of Iran aren't going to sit by and let this happen. I don't think any Chinese ships are going to say, well, we're not going to an Iranian port because of this. And I don't think any Russian ships are going to say the same thing. And I don't think the United States Navy's going to get too far boarding and detaining Chinese and Russian flagged ships at this juncture. So Donald Trump is posturing right now. Let's see where it goes, but there's no place for him to go because the outcome is guaranteed. Continued American military defeat, and we lose by not winning, and global economic disaster.
What does it take to effectuate a blockade, particularly one of an area this massive?
Well, first of all, it requires, extreme intelligence, meaning, and I'm not talking about the kind of innate intelligence that we're talking about that should be the purview of our elected leadership. I'm talking about intelligence from a systemic standpoint, from the U.S. intelligence community. We need to understand, where the ships are, where they're going, who they're flagged. And normally there's a mechanism in place. Lloyd's of London, the insurance companies, provides a lot of that. But because of the sanctions busting and because of the way this war has been going, the traditional way of tracking shipping is out the window. There's so much shadow fleet type activity taking place. So we need even better intelligence. Then the question comes, do we have the capacity to track, stop, search, detain these ships? Come on, ladies and gentlemen, look at a carrier battle group. First of all, the ships on the carrier battle group are there to protect the carrier. So if you have a cruiser or a frigate or a destroyer running picket, meaning they're the buffer between Iran's missiles and the carrier, the last thing these picket ships are going to be doing is diverting to intercept a tanker, because now they're off station. So we're going to need more ships coming in to do that. But as they move to detain, that is an act of war. And so if I were the Iranian ships or any ship, I would be leaving the Strait of Hormuz and hugging the coast of Iran and daring the United States to come in. Just saying, come on in, buddy, come on in, because those ships will be sunk by the Iranians. This blockade is as porous as, I can't come up with the appropriate metaphor at this point in time, but let's just say there's giant holes in this blockade. This is a politically motivated blockade that has zero chance of effectuating any impact on shipping coming out of the Strait of Hormuz.
What happens if an American helicopter with a half dozen Navy SEALs in it lands on a Russian tanker?
If the Russian tanker has, some Wagner type PMCs, and that helicopter will never get to the tanker. It'll be shot down. The SEALs come down. There'll be a firefight on that boat. The SEALs may prevail, but now we're at war with Russia. So don't do it. I mean, this is stupidity in the extreme. But again, I don't know what Russia's doing right now in terms of beefing up, but, there are reports that they have put Wagner veterans or, PMC type people on these ships, armed them not only with light arms and machine guns, but also man pads. So, if a helicopter comes in, they're going to be going up against combat hardened veterans. And, I know the SEALs are pretty tough, but you're not too tough when you're on a helicopter and that helicopter has been struck by, a man pad, and now you're going down in the water. You're just dead.
How desperate is Trump for an out from the war? It appears that he and his administration have given up the ghost on regime change. They have certainly given up the ghost on neutralizing or neutering, I'm not sure what the word is, Iran's ballistic missile. He was telling Maria Bartiromo had a look of surprise on her face, even though she's a friend and fan of his, that he still thinks the U.S. can capture the Iranian nuclear material. Now he's trying to close a series of ports, which just last Easter, 8 days ago, using harsh profanity on Easter Sunday, he demanded be open. How desperate is he?
Again, this is a man who is trapped. I mean, literally trapped in a, in a device of his own making. He's going to lose. Again, I tell people, stop thinking about national security. If you think Donald Trump cares one iota about nuclear enrichment in Iran, he doesn't even know what it is. All right. We are literally talking about one of the dumbest human beings on the face of the planet currently occupying the office of the presidency. And he's surrounded by people who are sycophants, who are there to say yes and lay hands on him and treat him as if he's Christ, instead of advising him and telling him, no, this is stupid, pound sand. We're not doing that. So, here we've got this idiot who is in this trap, and he doesn't know how to get out. And all he knows how to do is bluster. You see, this is about preserving the Trump brand. This is a business deal for him that's going south badly. And so his number one priority is to preserve the brand. Trump brand must come out of this crisis with its, being burnished, and that it's there. He is looking at losing an election in November. Now, he personally won't be, because he's not on the ballot, but his party is. And if we lose the House, we being I'm speaking in terms of Trump now, if he loses the House, he's going to be impeached for 2 straight years. And it's the end of his presidency, and the legacy is tarnished and done. This narcissistic egomaniac can't handle that. And if he continues to screw up the way he is, such as imposing a blockade that leads to the shutting down of Bab el-Mandeb by the Houthi, and now we have $200 a barrel oil and the economy collapses on him, he could lose the Senate. And if he loses the Senate with sufficient numbers, he now will be impeached and convicted. And that's the end of the Trump brand. He can't handle this. His ego can't handle this. So he is desperate to get out of this situation, but it has to be handled properly so that he is not blamed. He's the Teflon Don. He's just going to walk through this thing. J.D. Vance screwed up. Pete Hegseth. He's going to dump everybody to preserve the Trump legacy. But this is a sign of desperation. I'm telling you right now, Judge, I mean, I'm not, the world's greatest diplomat, but I've been there, done that on some pretty high profile stuff. You put me in charge of this negotiation, within 2 days, I'll have a deal that'll look good for Iran, look good for the United States, will be good for the world. But I care about the United States. I don't give a damn about Donald Trump's reputation.